It is game day, Broncos country. You know what that means. Keys to victory leading up to Monday Night Football for your Denver Broncos. They include getting the run game going to set up the pass. How do you slow down or limit Justin Herbert? Plus, can you prohibit Austin Ekeler from hurting you on third down? We dive into this and much more on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome in to a brand new episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much to everybody in Broncos country for tuning in and making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. Every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts in audio format, or whether you watch us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that subscribe or that follow button down below so you never miss out on a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, coverage, and more. From the South Stands to the end zone, I'm your host as always, Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined alongside as always by my co-host, Sayre Bedinger, site expert, predominantly orange.com. Let's get into the keys to victory on today's episode. Locked on Broncos, leading you up to kickoff on Monday Night Football. The Broncos on the road against AFC West division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. And Sayre, my friend, I think this is something where we really have to come into this game with the mindset the Broncos offense has to find a way to get going, right? So how do you do that? Well, you have three running backs on the roster right now that can take a little bit of pressure off of Russell Wilson. Plus, you also have the quick passing game. But if you get the run game going, you can maybe pass a little bit more and get things rolling on the offensive side of the ball.
And that's what I think everybody really wants to see, right? Is the Broncos just executing their ground game to perfection. No fumbles from Melvin Gordon. You know, obviously Mike Boone was running really well late in that game against the Indianapolis Colts. Now you add Latavius Murray into the fray, Cody, and I think that's going to be fascinating in terms of how does that change the just the way the Broncos perform when it comes to short yardage situations and in the red zone, because we know, like Ross Jackson told us, the Locked On Saints host, our good friend, he told us that what does Latavius Murray do every time he gets the ball? He's always falling forward. He's always getting that extra yard or two. And I think that's what the Broncos need right now, is a running back that's not going to be, shortchanged. Even if he gets hit at the line of scrimmage, he's going to fall forward. And in the red zone, in those third down or short yardage situations, they need somebody like that. So like you said, pounding the rock and letting that be the way that you set up your passing game. I know that, lately it kind of seems like, man, does Russell Wilson want to throw the ball 40 or 45 times a game? It kind of seems like that's what they want to do. But now we know Russell Wilson has an injured lat, and he's obviously dealing with that. And the Broncos need this running game to step up in a big way. They need it to be consistent, right? We've seen spurts of kind of greatness from them throughout the year, whether it was Javonte when he was healthy, or even Melvin Gordon, now Mike Boone. We need to not see just these short little spurts of greatness from him. We need to see consistent dominance on the ground, that the Broncos could say anytime during this game against the Chargers, we can run the ball at will.
And one big optic in maybe getting that going for them is potentially getting some reinforcements back. Now, look, could Quinn Miners play? He's questionable for this game. Calvin Anderson, we anticipate, is going to start at left tackle. At right tackle, we anticipate could be Billy Turner. If it's not him, it will be Cam Fleming. But can the Broncos run the football, right? Because I will say this too, for Cam Fleming, and you've been on record of saying this as well, we feel like he is a better run blocker than he is a pass protector guy, right? So if you can get the run game going, and if Quinn Miners does return to right guard, it does set things up. Now, Dalton Risner this week has been listed as questionable for the game, but he's told reporters, he's told us in the locker room that he's going to be ready to go on Monday night. He had a back issue flare up for him a little bit earlier this week. But hey, if there's some instance there, some inclination in any way, shape, or form that he is unable to go, I imagine we'll probably see a little bit of Netani Muti making his season debut, maybe at the left guard spot. So something to keep an eye on here for Broncos country. But, also kind of using that run game, Sayre. We talked about it with the three backs that you have. I asked Nathaniel Hackett earlier on this week, are we going to see them all three get the ball? And he said he'd like to get all three to have touches because of how physical and how violent this game is. So, he didn't give away too much, but kind of in that sense, me being a former coach, knowing some coach speak, I imagine we're going to see a true committee approach, which would be good because you know what that does, Sayre? That can set up the passing game here. If you were just running the ball down the Chargers' throats, which teams have been able to do so far this season. The Chargers are allowing over 130 rushing yards per game this season. Nick Chubb absolutely went off last week against them when they took on the Cleveland Browns. This can take the pressure off of, your quarterback in a sense, because you don't have to pass 30 to 40 times a game. And I think it can kind of get back to the ground root basics in which we've seen Russell Wilson be successful over the course of his career. When he has to air it out as many times as we've had to see him do it, things haven't been as good, I think, over time for him. So get the run game going. And you know what? First down, if you're worried about going backwards on a run play, go a quick pass, run a hook route, run a curl, run, a snag concept or a slant with your tight end or wide receiver, get 5 or 6 yards, and then have a 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5 to take that pressure off. But, we'll see if the Broncos can carry it over. But, Sayre, I truly, firmly believe if the Broncos can get the run game going, they'll set up the pass, and that'll put them in a good position on the offensive side of the ball to get the offense finally on track. But Broncos country coming up here in just a moment. Sayre and I, we're going to get into our second key to victory, and it involves slowing down or limiting what Justin Herbert can do as a pocket passing quarterback and also somebody who can get to the outside. How do the Broncos stop him? We dive into that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about Nugenix, the sponsor of today's episode, Lockdown Broncos. And if you're feeling like you just can't get in shape, it's not your fault. As men age, our body naturally loses free testosterone, the man hormone, and it happens to every man. It can make it more difficult to stay in shape and be energetic and active. Do you want more energy to help counter the negative physical effects of aging? Nugenix Total T Testosterone Booster with testosterone will help you turn back the clock, re-energize your workouts, and get you better results at the gym and help you look and feel like the man that you really want to be. And Nugenix Total T contains man-boosting key ingredients like testosterone, and it has been validated in 5 clinical studies shown to boost free testosterone levels in men. And because Nugenix Total T boosts free testosterone that the aging process robs, you'll feel stronger, leaner, with more energy and drive and more passion too, and your partner will know the difference. Nugenix Total T is the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Now get a complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T when you text NFL to 231-231. Text now and get a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, their most powerful fat incinerator ever, with key ingredients to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text NFL to 231-231. Text NFL to 231-231. Message and data rates may apply. Terms apply. Available at nugenix.com/terms. And our good friends over there at Athletic Greens. And our next partner has a product that I literally use every single day. And I started taking AG1 because many adults like myself don't receive enough vitamins and nutrients in our day-to-day life. Now, AG1 is part of my daily routine where I wake up and I have 1 scoop of Athletic Greens. I put it into 12 ounces of ice cold water and I mix it together. It contains 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And this special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. And it costs you less than $3 a day. And you're investing in your health, which is a lot cheaper than your cold brew habit. And your subscription comes with a free year supply of vitamin D, which is so important to add in these coming winter months where we don't get as much sunlight. And right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every single day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, sir, continue on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos, leading Broncos country up to kickoff with our keys to victory. Thank you so much, Broncos country, for tuning in and making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts or whether you watch us on YouTube. We appreciate you so much. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please do us a favor. If you've not done so already, go write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you love the show, leave us a 5-star review. Be sure to leave your Twitter handle in the review so you can be entered into any future contest giveaways that we do here, courtesy of the Lockdown Broncos podcast. All right, Sayre, the second biggest key, and I mean, ideally, this could be the biggest key of the entire game, I think, when we put it under the microscope, is when you look at the matchups between these two teams, Justin Herbert is the real deal. He's the second leading passer right now in the National Football League. He's got an arm that can throw pretty much anywhere, on the sideline, to the flats, deep middle, deep downfield. I mean, he can make every throw that you need an NFL quarterback to make, but he also has an underrated aspect of his game, which is being able to get outside the pocket and create plays. And where did we see the Broncos defense struggle against the Seahawks, against a quarterback that was able to scramble outside the pocket and make plays? Was Geno Smith. Denver can't afford to have some of those same letdowns this week against the Chargers. They have to find a way to pressure Justin Herbert consistently and often while playing tight coverage.
They do, Cody, and they have to not only do that, but they have to pressure him, and they have to, I think, once you get home, you got to finish the play, right? You got to finish, because
without getting flagged.
Without getting flagged, exactly. My goodness, can you imagine Tom Brady, man, just kicking at somebody's groin and still getting a flag? I mean, the guy he's a true, wonder in the NFL today. But I'm looking here at the Chargers offensive line, Cody, and I see two rookies. I see a rookie left tackle, Jamari Salyer. I see a rookie at right guard, although first-round pick, Zion Johnson. And I see Trey Pipkins at the right tackle position. So what do I see when I see that? I also see Baron Browning basically setting NFL new standards in terms of his get off at the line of scrimmage on pass rush situations. You see Bradley Chubb having arguably the best season of his career. You see Draymond Jones playing well, DJ Jones playing well. I mean, this is the recipe, isn't it? This is exactly what you want if you're the Denver Broncos. And if this is a key to victory, if pressuring Justin Herbert is key to victory, which it is, you want to make him make quick decisions. You want to make him uncomfortable. You want to make him have to run. Although, yeah, you want to tackle him when he gets outside the pocket, right? Unlike Derek Carr, who's scrambling for 20 yards and kind of ruining your chances to win. So to me, Cody, this is the biggest key of the game. And things are playing into the Broncos' favor here because the Chargers have injuries up front. There's no Rashawn Slater in this game. So it's just one of those situations where I feel like the Broncos have a clear advantage. The question is now, what's going to take over in this game? Is the Broncos pass rush going to take over, or is it going to be Justin Herbert and his ability to improvise taking over? Because like you mentioned, you got to actually finish when you get back there without getting penalties, without getting frustrated if he does escape the pocket a couple of times. You know, you have to be able to finish, and I think that's the biggest key in this matchup.
Well, and I think one of the things we've seen with Justin Herbert, right after he suffered that rib injury against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers offense has totally embraced a quick passing game, right? We don't want Justin Herbert to take as many shots as he's been taking. We want to get the ball out of his hands quickly, and that can be a recipe sometimes that can pick apart a defense, right? Or it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts, because when you're nailing the quick passing game, you're hitting quick slants, you're hitting routes to the flat, defenses start to tighten up a little bit, right? And I think if the Chargers get the run game going, which hopefully the Broncos can limit, we'll talk about that later, but then all of a sudden you force the defense to play tighter, which then allows you to take pop shots downfield. There's people that are talking about, January 2nd, 2022, and that was when the Broncos last took on the Chargers in Los Angeles. Granted, Denver was out Baron Browning, they were without Bradley Chubb in this game, they were without various key starters. Teddy Bridgewater was out of this game as well.
Pat Surtain.
They had so many dudes out due to COVID, and I just remember Kyle Fuller getting burnt for a big-time touchdown by Mike Williams. So Kyle Fuller's no longer here, Broncos country, and Chargers fans that have been trying to troll this week saying, oh, yeah, remember what happened last year when Mike Williams had a big touchdown? Wasn't against Patrick Surtain. Wasn't against Ronald Darby. So I think if we're going to try to play those narratives that we see these little trolls jump into the comments and try to do stuff like that, got to provide some logic and some factual information behind it. But you know what? That does present a little bit of a test here for the Broncos because there is no Ronald Darby. And we've talked about this all week long leading up to kickoff. How can the Broncos replace his production? I asked Zero Evero on Friday what his thoughts were on really just his expectation. How does he feel like Michael Ojemudia or Damari Mathis can step in place of Ronald Darby, opposite of Patrick Surtain, and still play at a high level? And he said he's got a lot of confidence in those guys, but it's about being able to get them reps, get them on the field. To me, I have a little bit of a hunch. It'll be Damari Mathis we see first, and Michael Ojemudia over time will build things up. Not to mention, veteran cornerback Darius Phillips is coming back from an injury as well. He was a full participant this week in practice on the last couple of days of practice at the UCL Training Center. So they do have another option there when it comes to cornerback opposite of Surtain. But, Sayre, I think if the Chargers get to the quick passing game with Justin Herbert, I think it could also play into the favor of the Broncos because, as we've seen, Ejiro Evero has done such a great job disguising his defensive looks this season. He'll show pressure, back off, and I think that is a good thing. We didn't see too many of these wrinkles under Vic Fangio. So that, to me, has me personally very excited about this matchup.
Well, and we saw the Colts and Frank Reich with Matt Ryan try to get to that as well, didn't we, on Thursday night?
Yeah.
And what happened when they tried to get to that quick passing game? Then Caden Stearns started stepping into those passing lanes. So it's one of those things where it's kind of you're screwed if you do, if you're screwed if you don't. You're kind of in bad shape here because the Broncos pass defense is so versatile right now. It's not just, well, they have really good guys that are, in coverage. No, they have really good guys that can rush the passer from the edge, or they have really good interior rushers. They just have so many different ways that they can beat you because they have every single one of those things, right? They don't just have one or the other, and it's not just like one or the other has been good in different games this season. It's like they have all been good all year long. So it's been so easy to focus on the negative with the Broncos offense that it's been difficult to kind of see how good the defense has been. But you take a step back, having 10, 11 days off helps with that. You take a step back, you watch this unit, Cody. I think that, yes, you're right. Even if the Chargers do get to a quick passing game, it plays to the Broncos' favor because they've been really great at rallying and tackling. They've been really great at, even if a team does matriculate down the field with the short passing game, they tighten up in the red zone. It's just so tough to get an edge against this Broncos pass defense, which it's probably the main reason. And I think obviously we could do a whole podcast about this, but probably one of the main reasons why Ejiro Evero is going to be getting a lot of looks as a, future head coach in the NFL very soon, because people want to have this kind of scheme defensively. You need to have it. And if he can prove against a guy like Justin, if he can prove that his pass defense can hold up against Justin Herbert, man, that's going to speak volumes to his game.
It's interesting you bring that up, right? You brought up the red zone piece. Broncos still the number one red zone defense in the NFL, only allowing a touchdown on 27.3% of offensive drives that get down into the red zone area. That is efficient. The last touchdown that came really inside the red zone from the passing standpoint was 11 quarters ago on Deebo Samuel. Should have been called an offensive PI there. Obviously, you had the two rushing touchdowns there by Josh Jacobs that you need to tighten up, and that's big. That's been a huge emphasis for them going forward, and that'll be a big test this week. Also, Denver, the number one pass defense in the NFL, only allowing 176.6 yards per game through the air, whereas Justin Herbert, you look at him, averaging 291.2 passing yards per game, which is good for second right now in the National Football League. So, Broncos country, something has to give in a battle of two AFC West teams hoping to gain leverage inside the division for a potential division berth, or whether that be a wild card at the end of the season. These matchups matter the most in Broncos country. But coming up here in just a moment, there's one more key to victory, and it has to do with stopping one guy on the other side of the field here for this Broncos football team. How can the Broncos avoid letting Austin Ekeler go off? We'll dive into that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about Prize Picks. The sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports done right. And with the Prize Picks app, you get to choose 2 to 5 players that you're focused on heading into the week. And these players will have a projection that is set by Prize Picks. And you simply choose whether or not they will have more or less than their Prize Picks projection, which could allow you to win 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports, and first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. As we continue on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, leading Broncos country up to kickoff against the Los Angeles Chargers Monday Night Football. Just want to say thank you so much to everybody in Broncos country making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day, every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts in audio format, or whether you watch us on YouTube. Make sure you get involved in the conversation. Tweet us on Twitter at Cody Roark NFL, at Sayre Bedinger, at Locked On Broncos, or comment on the YouTube video down below. Share us your Broncos thoughts, your Broncos keys to victory, and more. Sayre, getting into our final final key to victory here for this Broncos team ahead of Monday Night Football involves a lot about trying to limit or prohibit Austin Ekeler from having explosive plays against you. Austin Ekeler coming off of a very, very efficient game against the Cleveland Browns, nearly 200 all-purpose yards for him. I mean, when you look at him, he's one of their top receivers. He's one of their top rushing guys. I mean, he is dynamic in the way that he is used, and obviously last year he had 20 total touchdowns on the ground. I mean, he was an absolute fantasy football manager's wet dream to have there. Outside of that, though, you have to figure out a way to limit his explosiveness because if I'm not mistaken, I do remember that home game that the Broncos had against the Chargers, Austin Ekeler had success, had a touchdown in the red zone by running one of those angle routes or Texas routes against a linebacker. So how can the Broncos, how can Alex Singleton and Jonas Griffith step up in a big way here against one of the league's most electrifying players?
I think it's going to be tough, right? But they've got to stay disciplined. They've got to stay disciplined, and they've got to make sure that they don't bite on certain fakes if the Chargers do run a little play action or whatever. They've got to be aggressive, though, as well. I mean, you can't just be sitting back on your heels because if you're on your heels, Austin Ekeler can beat you with his quickness and his ability to make people miss in space. So you got to be aggressive. You got to make quick decisions. And I think for the Broncos in their pass defense, like we've been talking about, they've been really good at rallying and tackling. So you see some of these passes, these plays that are going to be designed to go very quickly to Austin Ekeler. You've got to be able to diagnose that very quick. And you've got to be able to, again, rally as a unit because like you said, this guy's coming off a very dynamic performance against the Cleveland Browns. Seemed like he was, gaining a chunk play every other time he touched the ball. And Cleveland has got fast players at the linebacker position. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, no slouch out there in terms of playing sideline to sideline. So it's not just about having speed, right, at linebacker. It's about playing with instincts. It's about playing within the scheme. It's about playing fast and aggressive and smart. I think, Cody, this is one of the biggest things to watch for because you don't want people on Twitter complaining during this game. Why is so-and-so covering Austin Ekeler? You want them to be doing their job and doing what they're supposed to be. But it brings up another interesting factor in this game because you talked earlier about guys like Michael Ojemudia, Darius Phillips coming back. Well, the Broncos are also getting PJ Locke back in this game potentially. And that's going to be a huge, factor in this chess match because I view Austin Ekeler as one of the best chess pieces in the NFL. So in terms of, your base defense versus nickel and dime and different things like that, how can the Broncos utilize some of their other defensive backs in this game to match up better with Austin Ekeler?
I'm glad that you brought that up because there are situations, let's say Denver goes dime. I mean, you could ideally put Caden Stearns or PJ Locke in there to essentially have that coverage responsibility out of the backfield against Ekeler. But that is also a lot to ask. Remember that play that Kareem Jackson had a few years ago right before halftime? They tried doing an end around with Ekeler, and he just absolutely knocked the ball out and forced a touchback there that would have been a touchdown play. I don't know, maybe do you use Kareem Jackson down in the box a little bit more this week against a guy like Ekeler? I am very intrigued to see what defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero has in store for the Los Angeles Chargers offense that is explosive, and we'll see if the Broncos offense can finally get going here this week. Broncos country, one thing is for certain, Sayre, Bedinger, and myself, we have you covered every single day all year long on all things Denver Broncos news, content, coverage, and more. Not to mention, after Monday Night Football, once I get back to my hotel room, we'll have a complete Lockdown Broncos post-game report for you here on YouTube and on your favorite audio podcasting platforms. Broncos country, we'll see you after kickoff.